This video contains scenes from the Ukraine conflict. Viewer discretion is advised.
Sees it coming, builds here, and now Stormyrite has the high ground. It's flipped on sides. He has no builds to work with, and that costs a lot of his HP. Reason with the final shot.
The story of Stormyrite. Nothing's going to stop him. Let's take a look at Stormyrite's history. Stormyrite is a veteran of the Fortnite competitive scene, starting with the World Cup qualifiers, making his first earnings in Week 1. Stormyrite continued to play the weekly qualifiers, earning himself just over $2,000 and making money in each of the 10 weeks. But this was only the beginning for Stormyrite. Stormyrite started to play trios with Putric and Siberia and made grand finals, as well as an additional $10,000 in earnings this season. Stormyrite was starting to establish himself as a top-tier pro in Fortnite this year. Stormyrite continued to play with Putric and Siberia in squads, but added Kiriachi into the mix. This team did very well in squads, achieving a 20th place in grand finals. In the past 2 FNCSs, Stormyrite has made many grand finals, yet struggled once he got there. Finally, in Chapter 2, Season 2, Stormyrite decided to change this, coming 16th in Grand Finals, coming home with $2,000. Going into trios, Stormyrite started to play with Kiriachi and Rotary. They did well, but not by their standards, missing heats entirely. Stormyrite decided to switch it up for next FNCS and went to play with Link and Seventor, but once again failed to make Grand Finals, falling well short, coming 25th in heats. In Season 6, Stormyrite struggles with Disappear. Playing with Tus and Kiriachi, they placed 6th in Grand Finals and won $30,000, but this wasn't even close to their peak. In Season 7, they dominated, winning FNCS Finals together, winning $100,000. And then in Season 8, they came 5th, winning another $35,000. Now at the end of Chapter 2, Epic Games announced a new game mode.
About next year's Duo FNCS.
Epic announced duos as the next year's game mode, so who would Stormyrite choose as his duo? Well, the decision was quite obvious. Stormyrite would choose to play with Kiriachi, a player he has been playing with since Squads FNCS. At the beginning of the season, it was not looking good for this team, only making 2 Cash Cup finals and having their best performance outside of the top 30. It was starting to look like an uphill battle for them, and it was looking like this FNCS might be over. In Qualifier 1, they had their best performance of the season, coming 14th in finals. In Qualifier 2, they were looking to punch in a spot into the Grand Finals. And, well, they dominated, coming in 5th place in Week 2, securing a spot in the FNCS Grand Finals. Everything was looking smooth for Kiriachi and Stormyrite until a disaster struck.
The Russian military has begun a brutal assault on the people.
Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Full-scale Russian invasion is underway.
Stormyrite lives in the Ukraine, and specifically Kiev, one of the major cities that is still currently being bombed. Stormyrite, a week before FNCS, has been displaced from his home and his whole life. Stormyrite was trapped in Kiev as all the roads were blocked and it was near impossible to get out. As the days went on, Stormyrite decided to leave Kiev and go to the city of Thermopylae, which was much safer than the situation in Kiev and eastern Ukraine. On February 28th, so just 5 days before FNCS, we get some news from Stormyrite. He will be playing in FNCS Grand Finals. As the days progress, we see a photo of Stormyrite's new setup in his new apartment. We also get news that Stormyrite's dad is going into the war, increasing the nerves even more and adding extra pressure to make his dad proud. But now it's FNCS and it's time for Stormyrite to put on a show. Like all games in this tournament, Stormyrite and Kiriachi land at Logjam. They rotate out of Logjam with 2 minutes and 10 seconds until the first zone finished closing. They claim a good hill and find a little storm surge. They instantly rotate towards the center of second and end up below the surge. Stormyrite and Kiriachi out-healed the surge, but severely scuffed themselves in the process. They continued to get the zones until they died from the 5th storm surge, ending their game. This was a very poor first game and left them far behind the pack. Going into Game 2, Stormyrite rotated out of Logjam a little earlier, but got held at the lake. Stormyrite and Kiriachi forced their way into second zone and kill Vino to get more materials and storm surge. Stormyrite and Kiriachi get 50-50 and first moving, but they are very scuffed with only 900 total materials. On moving zones, Kiriachi and Stormyrite were actively looking for refreshes and found one onto Anas, but Kiriachi ended up dying while going for the loot. Stormyrite tries to solo clutch, getting 1 kill, but ends up dying soon after. Going into Game 3, Stormyrite and Kiriachi are still well behind the pack and need a big game to get back into it. Stormyrite finds a llama early, setting themselves up to have a fantastic game. Stormyrite and Kiriachi rotate through the mid-game well and pick up a few eliminations along the way. They launchpad 5th zone and tarp first moving. Stormyrite continues to tarp well through the mid-ground and Kiriachi continues to find kills. Finally, going into the final moving zone, Kiriachi and Stormyrite kill Tayson and claim low ground. Unfortunately, Cammy and Teak had also claimed low ground, resulting in Kiriachi and Stormyrite's death in the ensuing fight for the low ground. This was still a monster game though, jumping Stormyrite and Kiriachi all the way up to 6th place. Game 4 brought more challenges to Stormyrite and Kiriachi. Seti and Chapix had been losing badly at South Sleepy, so they decided to contest Logjam, and Seti and Chapix outdropped Stormyrite and Kiriachi by a lot. Fortunately for Stormyrite though, he was able to turn this disadvantage around with their higher IQ of the POI. Stormyrite and Kiriachi wiped Chapix and Seti off spawn, but it severely dampened their mats as they had less time to farm. Their solution to this was to rotate on the dead side of the zone in order to farm materials safely. Stormyrite and Kiriachi made safe rotates into the 3rd and 4th zones. They then took a launch pad into the 50-50 zone but landed on a low layer. Because of their previous dead side rotations, Stormyrite and Kiriachi were far below Surge going into the first moving. It was not looking good for them until they found a kill onto Noah Riley that saved their game. Stormyrite continues to tarp but then dies to a spray down, and Kiriachi gets jumped on by Grolls and dies in 10th place. Although not as good as game 3, this game still brought them up to 5th place. In game 5, Stormyrite and Kiriachi had Logjam uncontested again. They rotated out early and established themselves in a good position. They rotate into 2nd zone and then play full edge at 3rd. This makes their 4th zone rotate extremely difficult. Kiriachi dies on this rotate and Stormyrite picks up one more kill but dies soon after in 25th. Game 6, the last one of day 1. Stormyrite and Kiriachi again rotate out of Logjam early and find a good spot to get Storm Surge. On 50-50, Stormyrite and Kiriachi recycle builds and get into the zone. On first moving, Stormyrite and Kiriachi look to recycle a launch pad on the backside of the zone. Stormyrite is able to successfully do this, but Kiriachi dies, meaning Stormyrite has to solo clutch. Stormyrite was able to make it past the first moving, but died when he went for a refresh. After day 1, Kiriachi and Stormyrite are in 9th place and they need a big day 2 to get a top 5 finish. Having a good day 2 usually starts with a great first game, but in game 7, Stormyrite and Kiriachi go down early and fall well down the leaderboard. Game 8 was the game they needed though. Game 8 started with them rotating out early and finding many kills in the mid game. This gave them a good materials and most importantly good storm surge. Stormyrite cars into the 4th zone and instantly rotates into the 5th zone when it reveals. Stormyrite and Kiriachi find a kill onto Zrox and they take the low ground in the middle of second moving. Stormyrite and Kiriachi then find 2 more kills to push themselves towards the final moving. Unfortunately, they ended up going down at the backside of the zone when they ran out of materials. This game was huge for them though, bringing them into the top 5. In game 9, they look to replicate their previous successes. Stormyrite rotates out early and gets in a good position to find Surge. When second zone reveals, Stormyrite tries to rotate towards the second zone but stops to continue to look for Surge. Because of this delay, Stormyrite has to use a lot of mats to get into the second zone. Stormyrite and Kiriachi find a kill and get into the 50-50 zone. Stormyrite and Kiriachi launch pad first moving and see that they are well below Storm Surge. They end up getting hit by the Surge, but it doesn't last for long. Unfortunately, neither did Stormyrite and Kiriachi, dying soon after in 19th place. Going into Game 10, Stormyrite and Kiriachi were still in 5th place, but the gap behind them had shrunk. Game 10 starts with them rotating into a great mountain spot for Surge and finding a kill onto Dan to start out their Surge for the rest of the game. Kiriachi and Stormyrite Spider-Man into the 4th zone and get a far first moving pool. As they make their rotates, they end up below the Storm Surge, and Stormyrite and Kiriachi barely get enough damage before the Surge would eventually start to hit. On second moving, Stormyrite spiders to frontside low ground and claims it. Stormyrite and Kiriachi find a body to continue their tarps, and they find a kill onto Kinzel in order to get to the final moving zone. Stormyrite and Kiriachi pull the final moving zone and win the 2v2 against Schmecky and Gabix to put themselves in a 2v1 against Resin. Unfortunately, Resin was able to come out on top, but this was still a huge game for Stormyrite and Kiriachi, bringing them up to 3rd. Game 11 starts and Stormyrite and Kiriachi are looking great, rotating well and getting good surge. Going into the 4th zone rotate, they looked like they were in a position to have another good game, but on their rotate they chose to use Spider-Mans, which resulted in Kiriachi dying. This left Stormyrite to solo clutch. Stormyrite used out all of his Spider-Mans and all of his materials, but he wasn't able to make it, only coming in 12th place. Going into Game 12, Stormyrite and Kiriachi are still in 3rd place, but they are in a prime position to win the tournament, only being 1 point behind Thomas and Tayson in 2nd and 5 points behind Hen and Queasy in 1st. Game 12 starts and Stormyrite and Kiriachi rotate out very early and get a great position with 3 minutes until the 1st zone closes. This spot got 2nd zone and 3rd zone. Stormyrite and Kiriachi instantly rotated to the 4th zone and they got a close 50-50 zone. They used peppers and quickly got into the 50-50 zone. They pulled the first moving zone, but unfortunately were way below Storm Surge. They were just too far behind the Storm Surge and they weren't able to recover their game from here, dying in 18th. Luckily for Stormyrite and Kiriachi, Thomas and Tayson went down early, but Hen and Queasy won their game and the whole FNCS. Despite getting 2nd, Stormyrite has pulled off one of the greatest accomplishments in esports history, and it is important to remember that Stormyrite, his father, and the rest of Ukraine are still facing this horrible tragedy, and it is important to hold them in our hearts. Stormyrite is a fierce competitor and showed his drive in this tournament, and also showed how Fortnite is being used to help families and give people an escape during these very, very dangerous times.